everybody, Nick here. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about something that's important to me and I think is important to a lot of people who like gear for everyday living, and that's trust in your tools. So part of the reason that I focus so much on everyday gear is that life is gonna throw curveballs at you 100%. There's gonna be shit happening that you can never be ready for because, oh my god, the world is weird. So you might as well be really ready for the stuff that you know probably will happen. And so that's kind of my mindset. It's not like doomsday bunker, oh my god, we need to be stockpiling gas masks kind of things, because let's face it, I'm not going to survive a zombie apocalypse. Just be real here. But it is, for an everyday basis, you know you're probably going to need a pen. There's a pretty good chance that it's going to be dark. You might need to cut something. You're gonna need to know what time it is. Those are the kinds of little things that you can be ready for that make life just a little easier when they come up. And for me, a key issue is trusting your tools in those situations. Let me talk a little bit about that for a second. I'll use a pocket knife for the example. This is the Three Sisters Forge Beast, or more accurately, it's a printout of one because I sold the real one. I've got a full review up. It was a very nice knife aesthetically, and it has a lot of promise in its size and whatnot. This is bigger than it was actually. But the issue with it was fiddly, and I couldn't really trust it. When I got it, it had a lot of lock rock. It had a lot of lock rock. So if you pull back on the blade, the lock disengages, preparing it to close on your fingers. Turns out you can adjust it via a little cam up here, and I had to keep adjusting it. Even with Loctite, it just kept going a little bit out of adjustment. And sooner or later, the pivot screw, which is custom made, started stripping out. And I just got to a point where I realized, you know what? On any given day, I don't know that I can trust that this knife is an adjustment. And when I had that realization, it was pretty easy. This knife went on the market with full disclosure, and there it went. And, you know, that's just a property of the tool. This was not a well-designed tool, and as such, I couldn't trust it. And I've felt that in a bunch of places, and that contrasts, by the way, with a knife like this. This is your Graham Razel, which I really can trust. The lockup is good. The flipping action is good. I know that anytime I hit this, it's going to deploy. There's no problem. It's a simple knife. It's only got, this screw, and this screw here. And that's it. And there's a chunk of metal wedged up here. These are all just chunks of metal. I can take the thing apart and put it back together, clean it, make sure everything's good. And because of that, I know that this is reliable. There's not a question of adjustment or fiddling with it. It just works. And that's the kind of trust I'm talking about. This is played out over and over again in my gear-loving life. These are flashlights that you can get at Costco, which is a big American big box retailer. And you can get them at something absurd, like $30 for 4 of these. And they take a bunch of, I think, AAA batteries, so you can always find batteries for them and whatnot. The problem is I don't trust these, and the reason is, and I don't really trust any alkaline flashlight anymore, because if you put this, say, in your toolbox, I pulled this out of my toolbox maybe a week ago, and it didn't work. And I opened it up, and sure enough, one of the batteries had exploded in there. Because if you keep an alkaline battery in a closed container for long enough with absolutely no ventilation, it's gonna melt down. And when that works, not only do you not have a light, but you've got a cleanup job. And that sucks. And I realized that, and this has happened to me several different times with several different Costco flashlights. And I realized that I never had this issue with my higher-end, quote-unquote, flashlights. This is your Phoenix UC35. This one happens to be USB charged because I like to try and minimize the number of chargers and weird batteries in my life. But it also just takes your normal flashlight battery, the small one. Not a flashlight guy, I don't know that. But this I trust. I take it out of my backpack, or I take it out of my drawer, and it's gonna freaking work. I'm gonna turn it on. Hey, light! Wow! Amazing. And so I can trust this. And so for me, even though this costs a little bit more money, it's much more worth it compared to your Costco special here, which I can't trust, which is gonna explode on me. Watches are a really good example of this. I was a smartwatch guy for a while there. Pebble Steel, then Apple Watch. I owned an Apple Watch. You can see it in some of my early videos. Thing is, couldn't trust it. Because fundamentally, I couldn't trust that it was going to deliver notifications. I sure as hell couldn't trust it for applications. They never quite got that one working right, even in the version 2 of the software. I mean, it was just, and so it ended up in a situation where I had a computer that wasn't really trustworthy on my wrist, and it wasn't a great watch either, because I couldn't even look down and trust that it would actually turn on as a watch. So when I moved to this guy, this is just a Citizen Eco Drive, where it's being charged right now by the sun. I don't need to worry about whether or not it's plugged in, whether or not the adapter was seated properly. It's a quartz watch rather than a mechanical, so I don't really have to worry about whether the time has shifted, whether my watch is slow or fast. I mean, at the order of a few seconds a month, this will deviate. And that's a big advantage. I can look down and know, okay, my watch is probably correct. And that's nice. And so that's another area of trust. I never really trusted the Apple Watch because it never really worked quite right. I trust this guy, and I like it a lot more because of it. Final example. I used to be a fountain pen guy. In my heart, I am still a fountain pen guy. The thing is, though, I don't write that often. And so it's the case that half the damn time, I would take out my fountain pen. I had one of those Pilot Namiki Vanishing Point clicky ones. Loved it. Beautiful, fun to write with, great nib. Everything I could have asked for in a pen, except the fact that, because I only write, maybe once a week or so, in a situation where I can sit down with a fountain pen, sometimes, more often than I'd like, and sometimes there were 2 or 3 month gaps, I'd sit down to start writing, and it wouldn't just work. I wouldn't just get my hello world. I would just get nothing. And so, hold on, I'll wet the nib real quick. Oh no, my ink's gone dry. And again, that's not an issue if you use your fountain pen all the damn time, and if you've got a fountain pen with a screw-on cap, not a problem. But in my use case, relatively low frequency of writing, and the Vanishing Point pen, I couldn't trust that when I opened up my pen, it was going to write. This is a Prometheus Writes pen. They're doing a pre-order on these guys right now, by the way. So, FYI, this is a freaking gem. I've got a review separately. But with this guy, it's a rollerball cartridge. So it's a Mont Blanc, if you will. Rollerball cartridge. And the beautiful thing about it is that it always freaking works. It's a screw-on cap. It doesn't go dry. It's just a hunk of metal with a cartridge in it. And that's important to me. So I encourage you, as you're thinking about tools in your life, to think about this more explicitly. Do I trust this particular tool? Does it always work? Does it sometimes work? And if it only sometimes works, does it make enough of an improvement in my life that it merits that little bit of extra pain? For me, even though I love the idea of the Apple Watch, for instance, I realized that the unreliability and the lack of trust was a bigger issue than any of the little joys it brought me when my wrist tells me it's about to rain. It's neat. And, same thing. I realized that it's probably worth my time and my money, because time is money, to invest in a slightly better flashlight than it was to, use a cheapo but not be able to trust it. And certainly with my fingers involved, I'm not going to dick around with a knife that I can't trust is going to lock up well. That's just stupid. So that's trust in the everyday gear world. I'm sure a lot of people think about it this way, but it's something that's really important to me in making my decisions. And I bet it's important to you. If you got anything to say on this, if you got a story about something or a gear item that you trust a lot more than you thought, throw it in the comments. It's always interesting to see these things. I hope this has been helpful to you, and thank you very much. Have yourself a wonderful day.